Test. Mic test. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic check. Thank you for the confirmation, Atlam. Much appreciated. You have a busy week, Atlam? Welcome back, one and all. Hey, Anani, welcome back. How are you? I feel so naked without my headphones. My headphones were sitting on the charger at like a weird angle, and they didn't charge, so they're dead. They've got to charge for like an hour before they're usable, so they'll pretty much only be usable like the last half of the stream. So I'm going to be talking to myself, like, without the regulation of the audio, so if I'm a little loud, I use the music to help me regulate my audio. If I'm talking too loud or too quiet, let me know. Jack, what? How you doing, bud? That's definitely an entry. What's new with you? Jack wrote in like he was like, yeah, exactly. You know, you're known for that. I've known you for years, and you always come in with an interesting entry. I remember one time I think it was when it was a meme at the time. I mean, it's still a meme, but it was really popular at the time, and you were like, let's see, what did you say? It was something about The Undertaker and how he slammed someone through a table and like the 1994 something. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, right? That's cool and all, but did you know that The Undertaker slammed someone through a table in the 1994 World Wrestling Championship or something like that? I don't know. You did say it. I remember because I laughed for like 5 minutes straight. It was years ago, though. How's everyone doing today? Island Lass, how are you? So, today's stream is the Dam stream, and for our topic today, I chose infrastructure, which I think is an important part of most maps. Maps need to have, to a degree, infrastructure where, you know, support systems for your cities, villages, whether it's simple things like a road, maybe a windmill or a water tower, having some central services, i.e., a government building, a chapel, is usually a good indicator of like a thriving city. Jack, in my case, I just remember standout moments that like make me laugh or are memorable. I don't remember most of what was said a week ago. Cowabunga. I think it's COWABUNGA, Anani. I distinctly remember having Ninja Turtle merch as a child that said the phrase on it. It was like something like that. I think it was something like that. Okay, I'm making sure all the feeds are live right now because my stream feeds for Steam and TikTok weren't working initially. It looks like Steam is up. And hey, how you doing, King? Welcome, welcome. I do got the TikTok feed up, so that's working. Glad to see it's working. Sometimes it doesn't work. But yeah, I was raised on Ninja Turtles, you know, both like the cartoon and the live action movies. You know, in the 90s, and I had a bunch of the toys. What a time to be alive. I had a so like I had the whole set of the turtles, and then yeah, the live action movies were goated. The only thing that stunk about the live action movies is that we didn't get, we got Toka and Razor instead of Bebop and Rocksteady, which I believe they chose those two like costumes because they were easier to manage than a Bebop and Rocksteady. So like I understand, but you know, it was kind of a letdown. But I had like a Master Splinter toy even when I was a kid, and it had like a felt around it. It felt like skin, like a rat's fur. And he had like a bow and like one of the ooze containers. And anyway, I just like the man, what a time. You had the same one? Oh goodness. That one was so cool. So who's my 90s kids in here? Raise your hands if you were born, you know, late 80s, raised early 90s. 92, nice. I mean, you were born in the 90s there, Nani. Still works. 2003, Jack, geez, you were born like the year before I graduated from high school. Such a youngling, Jack. Man, I'm trying to remember here. Oh, Highland Lass. Ewan McGamer graduated high school in 98. Hey, Rev, how are you doing? But yeah, I was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. So like you graduated high school, so you were probably what born 84? 85, somewhere in there, maybe 83. This building is something else. There's these two little courtyards hanging out where you can see plants. I didn't ignore you. I'm kind of reading through the chat as I go. Crash Bandicoot 3 came out on your birth year? Man, oh man. That does make me feel old. Is this a hospital? It's actually more like a government building, like a parliamentary structure. That's a very good question, though. Is it Shira Gioni? I want to make sure I pronounce your name correctly. Something very bad happened to you in a building looking just like that? I'm sorry to hear that. Keep in mind, this is a building for a fantasy setting, like games like D&D or Pathfinder, not necessarily based on real world stuff, though I'm sure the creator used some real world inspiration in the design. Like the Eisenhower building in DC? Hadn't really put the connection together. Kinda does. You know, it's a topic we discuss on our streams, Ewan. We never really dive into a full-on stream where that's the entire topic, like building 3D models. Mainly because that usually dives into tools that are outside of the periphery of Dungeon Alchemist, which there's many, and teaching just, one is not really a justice to the many different offerings available. Now, that being said, there are people in our community, members of our community, who have quite a bit of experience with map making and also 3D design, and they share a lot of assets on our workshop, and they also offer their expertise if you have questions or concerns, or you're wondering how to do something, how to create a model, how to import it to Dungeon Alchemist, how to use a specific tool. Primarily, most of them use Blender, I'll tell you that right now. So but if you're interested, our Discord is a great resource for that. You can create a question thread, and usually several people will dive in and start offering you assistance in the matter. But as you can see here, y'all, this is like a beautiful parliamentary building. Sharagione means you're right in Italian South dialect. Interesting. The ancestors on my mother's side are from Italy. When I was growing up, my grandmother and my great grandmother, when they wanted to swear, they were very religious, so they wouldn't swear. But like if they stubbed their toe or were mad about something, they would yell "Butigra Magnesia," which, if I'm understanding correctly from their education on the matter, means bottle of milk of magnesia. So they would just say something like random to get their frustrations out. This is wow. This is wonderful. This would have been a great shot. So my great grandmother, my grandmother, my mom, my aunts, they all say that when they're mad. They will, like, anytime they're frustrated or want to swear, they'll say that instead. This is a great build. I love how every space is very well managed and utilized. There's like something everywhere. Goodness. So, when you think of infrastructure, what type of buildings and like resources do you all think of for your maps? This definitely is like an extreme example of infrastructure where we have a government parliamentary building with many offices, floors, etc. So by default, Gabrielle, or is it Gabriel? Sorry, Gabriel, not Gabrielle. Gabriel, by default, every building has a roof, but in order for it to be visible, you have to have it showing before you enter the building. So let me show you what I mean. Let me exit this building. Lost. No, it's okay. I'll go outside. Hey, Chim, how you doing? Warehouses are a good suggestion, Lizzie. They are. So notice this building, it has 7 floors to the entire structure. If I just generate it, or if I go into first person with it like this, I believe the cameras will be represented of what is visible. Or at least the cinematic camera does. Like when you're in the cinematic camera, it stays like this. So you have to raise up all 7 floors, or, you know, multiple floors you have visible, i.e. the base floor and the roofing, before you enter a camera mode. Let's just double check with a token to make sure. So I guess first person automatically raises all the roofing, but cinematic does not. So cinematic, you have to have the roofing raised all the way, whereas first person will automatically show all the roofing. So that's good to know. So if you go into this camera mode, you need to have all the roofing raised up, raise the roof, quite literally, before you enter that camera mode. This Mac just brought me a drink. What is the base of the map with this structure called? It's called Government Building. I found this on the workshop just earlier today, Lizzie. I just went by most recent, which is my favorite way to search the workshop. And I just scrolled down a little bit. And if I'm not mistaken, it was right here. Right here. There it is. Government Building. Government Building, the Volkeslung. But an imposing building like this, yeah, shows like a huge government, right? Or a big city. Ideally like a massive kingdom or democracy. Because, you know, a parliament is usually indicative of a democracy. But it is a very imposing structure that could be pretty much anything you want it to be. It's great, by the way. This design is lovely. Get it? How's everyone's week? How's your weekend going so far? What have you been up to? How's your session prep going? How's your sessions going? I'll kind of start. My next session is tomorrow. So I'm very excited. Haven't played in a few weeks, so I'm very excited to hop on and get some game time. As I've mentioned before to some of y'all, my group only meets up once a month, so typically once a month. So it's always nice when we get together. That's a great view, don't you think? Warehouses, though, Lizzie, are a great example of infrastructure. This obviously is a super example, an extreme example of infrastructure, some sort of massive government building. First game back from a summer break tomorrow, Gabriel. Nice. Mr. Flakes, how you doing? Welcome. First time chatter, how you doing? I'm wonderful. We're discussing infrastructure in maps, primarily maps for tabletop games, Dungeons and Dragons, and the like, and how it can correlate to your gameplay and map design. Jim, you're in a new campaign, new character, Gloomstalker Forest Gnome, level 2. Nice. Yeah, this is an extreme example, obviously. Parliamentary, government building. We're going to look at some more kind of base examples. But even things like roads, walkways, parks are great examples of infrastructure as well. Depending on your city size, something like that is obviously an extreme example for a big city or a big kingdom. big, a big area with like a reasonable government of some sort. Here we have another example of a city quarter. Love this map. Great example of like a city square with, supporting businesses. And here we have a cemetery near. You just finished my every Saturday sessions? So you play every Saturday for how long? Or just today you played, and then you just wrapped up your session. Is that what you're meaning? Man, it's crazy. We've got two Revs in chat right now. We've got the Lord Rev and Rev Eldridge. Double Revs. Hey, Joseph, how you doing? Welcome back. By the way, we are multi-streaming on like 6 different platforms at the moment. We're live on Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Steam. So if I'm talking and you don't see me mentioning a name or a chat that you're seeing in your chat feed, that's probably why. Unfortunately, some of the stream feeds don't allow you to include chat from other platforms on your stream feed against the rules, for instance, on Twitch. So we can't merge all the feeds together with like a singular chat feed, unfortunately. Oh, nice. That's awesome. I'm jealous. I only get to play like once a month. This map has some amazing examples. I love this little tavern here with the balcony. As you peel away, the roofing and see inside, you can see there's like a upper edge, like mezzanine, where you can see the bar below and kind of the, what's going on down there. And then you have the rooms up above. It's a little strange that this patched, but it's okay. Man, Mr. Flakes, I'm jealous. I wish I could play more. Moving on to the rest of the city here is you got like a little alley on the side with, there's a bakery. And that's like kind of the back area of their bakery. And then there's some alley kind of vents going into the sewer system. Another interesting feature of this map. Infrastructure also can mean sewer systems. Anani, it's good to pace yourself and yourself best. Definitely don't get burnt out on your sessions, right? And your play. As DMs and GMs, we know all too well, it's very easy to get burnt out and worn out and feel maybe a little bit underappreciated at times. I'm sure we've all dealt with even imposter syndrome as DMs. So I definitely recommend that you have a moderate pace that is good for you, that you can keep up with, and reflects your ability as a GM, Doors have been tricky for me with curved walls. What do you mean by that, Chim? Can you elaborate? Because they usually just snap right on and automatically bend to fit it. So, how big do you think this map is going to be as the whole city, Anani? Hey, Jay, how you doing? Welcome back. How's your week going, my friend? This looks so good. I love this master sewer setup with like the central area. This is so well done. And yet another great example of infrastructure. By the way, that's what we're kind of chatting about today. If y'all have any insight on infrastructure or what you would put in your basic maps, things that you think are like must-haves, things you can't live without in like a small village or town or hamlet, maybe even beyond that to like a city. Lots of round buildings and challenges lately. Doors don't stick everywhere, especially on Squircles. Interesting. You know, if you could share some like images of this or video of it in the Discord, I'd love to take a look at it. Gabriel, actually, there's like a good portion of people in our community that use the various angled camera angles to grab shots or video to use as like handouts or, you know, if they have a player, like, okay, so great example of a use of the cinematic camera. And I learned this from a DM in our community some time ago. They have a player who has a familiar that flies, right? And so almost everywhere they go that's like, you know, they think there might be some danger, they'll say, yeah, I'm going to let my familiar fly overhead and I'm going to view through their eyes and see what we can see. So they like tend to fly over do like most areas where they think the familiar would be used, and they'll do like a little quick flyover like this, record it, and then give that to that player so they have like a quick aerial view that they can look at a couple of times. You can also use this same camera view because it's like a drone. You can fly it around and get neat little angles and shots of areas. So maybe it's their first time entering the town and you wanted to kind of give them a neat cinematic shot of their entry so it feels so, I don't know, epic. Something like this, you know, at about head height is really fun. Additionally, we also have, and by the way, this green dot on the mouse is like a mouse highlighter. It's not normal in Dungeon Alchemist, just something I have on to help with the stream. But you can also place a token anywhere in your map. Notice this little eyeball? I call it the icon. You click on the icon, and you can now browse your maps in first person, which is a very valuable tool as well. There's DMs that stream this to their players over like Discord or Zoom or Teams. Some will record or take screenshots. Others will, you know, stream it live. So it's a very like valuable tool. Think of like your, you know, Dungeon Alchemist is a tool in your tool belt as a GM, but there's multiple tools within Dungeon Alchemist. You obviously have the map making tool and the exports for, you know, whether you're printing maps or using a virtual tabletop, but you also have these camera tools to better immerse your players both at their level, because, you know, it's nice to see it through their eyes, right? As well as, you know, get different angles that they might get if they were flying or, you know, scoping out the environment using their abilities. Do it in districts then, Inani. Because that big, you wouldn't want one map. And here's the thing. You could save yourself a lot of trouble by majority of the buildings in your town, or you could just assume they're not enterable for your players. Like, are the players going to go through like thief style and enter every villager's home and every shop and every, you know what I mean? They probably won't enter everything. But you can have some key points of interest made as secondary maps or scenes. So if they go into, you know, the butcher, or if they go to the general store or the outfitter or the city hall, you have them pre-made and ready to go, that you can open it up as a separate scene. So it's not independent to have all these scenes in one massive map. Does that make sense? Your Orin maps are really cool, Highland Lass. I think it's also better for your players because of the larger map, they likely won't be able to load if you're playing online, right? But if you're doing small little districts, i.e. slums, i.e., you know, the shopping district, i.e. the high class district, all these different areas, right? You can break it down into different areas that are smaller maps and easier for your players to digest and load, or, you know, just be able to interact with. Polaris, how you doing? Welcome back. Hope you're well. There's something wrong with my chat bot. I need to see if it needs an update because right now it says there's 9 watching, but in chat's view, I can see like 20 people. Like 10, 15, 20 people. Something's wrong. I don't usually pay attention to those numbers, but like when they're off, it bothers me. Well, I mean, the royal palace could just be one district itself, like the grounds, the gardens, and the palace, right? Just one map. It's fenced in as far as they're concerned. Everything outside of that is like city, but it's got a big wall around it, right? So it doesn't, just because it's one building doesn't mean it can't be a single district. I think like video games, how they break everything into like loading zones, right? So like if you're running around in Fable or any video game, really, you'll eventually get to a point where you get to a new zone, you have to load into that zone, right? Oh, wow, that's cool, Inani. It's interesting. DJ, remember the city I showed you? I used it as an overworld with special local maps. Oh, that's so cool, AJ. That's a great way to do it. So you had like a regional overworld map, and then all the little areas were points of interest that expanded into larger city maps when you got to them. Like a more detailed, localized map. By a giant elevator, like an elevator that's for giants, or an elevator that's just large? I need to shave my beard. Just get rid of all this. I think I'll do it today after the stream. What do y'all say? So it's essentially like those pneumatic tube systems that they use at like a bank to send the money out to the cars in the drive-through, or like to send mail in like hotels and stuff. It's funny because back in the day, like in the US, certain parts of the US had like crazy pneumatics, right? Like some cities, like you would get the mail like 3-4 times a day because of the pneumatic mail system. But yeah, it's interesting to say the least. So you essentially have the Futurama tubes for transporting people as an elevator. Cool, Anani. That's awesome. Is your like setting kind of like a steampunk setting? Let's talk about settings, actually. Where is everyone's games based? Is it a high fantasy, dark fantasy, steampunk, futuristic, sci-fi, cyberpunk? This is so high fantasy. Nice, Gabriel. How long have you been running your campaign for? I was recently talking to a person who does like a low fantasy campaign where like magic exists, but it's incredibly rare. I.e., like the only people who have magic are like few and far between, including the players are just like one of the few people who have magic and made a party together. 3 years, that's impressive. Awesome. It's a fantasy setting, and this city has influences from my BB, the Necromancer Artificer. He helped this forge city to improve their tech, so yeah, some steampunk elements. Very cool. Very cool. AJ says, I run high fantasy, but in an afterlife and in divine planes. Looks like a modern day corporate office, so the deities are high execs. Interesting. That's cool. Tim just says Strahd. That's all that needs to be said. Dark fantasy. No one will survive. Strahd's intended to make players cry. I'm just kidding. Island Last says, high fantasy homebrew world of the Talamard. Both separate parties are in different areas of the region in the Eildland, all loosely inspired based by the Highlands of Scotland. Enjoying a bit of cranberry juice today, yes. Stalking the gloom. Stalking the gloom. Talavard. Talavard. I feel like I'm still pronouncing it wrong, but thank you for giving me the pronunciation. I'm not much of a coffee drinker, Anani. Like, I'm a 50-50 when I drink coffee. Like, I basically, sometimes I drink it and I get super tired. And sometimes I drink it and I'm super awake. So it's like very unreliable for me as a way to kind of just sip on something in the morning. And I don't like too much water early on, or like milk or tea. A little bit of juice early in the morning, not that bad. It means Highland and Scottish Gaelic. That's really cool. You are all about the Highlands. My experience with Highlands is a movie and TV show called Highlander. And then everything you tell me about the Highlands. Highland Lass. Rava, you know, that'd be pretty cool, actually, if your players could jump into your maps and explore them. Whether it's like some kind of advanced VTT feature, or you know, some sort of way to access the maps remotely, like a multiplayer feature. Looks like we got a warehouse here. Another great example of infrastructure. Love how they have the crane to lift stuff up from the various carts, store it above. There's only one Highland Lass, right? There can be only one Highland Lass. One thing to keep in mind, Reva, is or Rava, is Dungeon Alchemist isn't necessarily a gameplay tool. It's a map making tool, an immersion utility. So it wasn't really designed with play in mind, more making the maps so you could export for your play platform of choice. But our devs have stated that after we leave early access, they would like to offer you know, some sort of advanced tool that would pair with Dungeon Alchemist. You know, some kind of new age virtual tabletop that would get the most out of what Dungeon Alchemist has to offer. Whether that means exploring the maps in 3D for your players, or what, I don't know, because it's still quite a ways out before we leave early access and have, you know, finished our development, or at least to a point where it's ready to move on to something bigger. Highland Lass. So what you're saying is you need to go find all the other Highland Lasses and basically have a Connor McLeod, like a Duncan or Connor McLeod esque battle to figure out who is the main Highland Lass. Rava, it will be a little while before we get there, but it is on the kind of like the periphery or like the plans for Dungeon Alchemist in the future. Man, look at all the armor. Look at all that full plate. I love the pipe edition there. I feel like that's a reference to the show, the Highlander show, AJ. Or am I misunderstanding you there? If I remember correctly, there was a person who Duncan had like a relationship, like a friendship with, who was also another like immortal who he would meet up with like every century. Or is that something from Sandman? One or the other. I feel like it's one or the other. Gosh. Immortals tend to have a lot of overlap in their stories. In the first movie, it was Sean Connery. Yeah, I remember. You also had what's his name as the villain? Goodness, what was his name? Still acting today. He's Mr. Krabs, by the way. Kurgan, yeah, Kurgan. But also, he's like an amazing voice actor and regular actor. He does tons of voice acting to this day. It's funny, in like Highlander, he didn't really say anything. He was just like this ominous presence. Clancy Brown, that's right. He was so good in Shawshank, right? Missed out on being an extra for the Highlander film. A friend's boyfriend got in, though. In Shawshank, I think is like one of his best acting roles, for sure. Like, he was so intense in Shawshank. Continue to look at more cities and their infrastructure. That's kind of the point of today's stream, is I'd love to talk about infrastructure. So what you think should be base infrastructure in a city or town or village. What kind of things do you include in your maps? When I was growing up, Shawshank Redemption was on TV, like on repeat, like almost every day. It was on like TNT or USA or TBS like every day. It was called City Quarter with Sewer. City Quarter. No worries, my friend. Kanat, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Like a little teleportation station. And like a fast travel. Stargate, whatever. Teleportation circle, whatever you want to call it. That's actually a great example of fantasy infrastructure. Teleportation rings. Or a teleportation circle. Something you pretty much only see in sci-fi or fantasy. But in some cities, they are like a key piece of infrastructure for travel between major, cities or whatever. Gardens, bathhouse, palace, shopping area, forge, mining district, arena, entertainment, elevator building. Also, if you have like docks and like the fisherman's district, like warehouses, great addition too. Map is causing my computer to like quite a bit. Don't know why. All frozen mostly. Couldn't that be like a great point of transportation then? If it's all ice, it's like sleds to get across, or ice fishing. Wyvern, right? Oh, that'd be cool. And I hope someday I get to ride a wyvern in my campaign. That'd be cool. Take a look at these structures, see what we got going on. Sawmill is a great example. Like a grain mill also is helpful. Potion of motion? You mean like a potion of haste? Oh. Actually, speaking of Sawmill, we have some Saw assets that are going to be, hopefully, in the next update. Geronimo, how you doing, my friend? Tired? Oh man, I'm sorry to hear it, but you know what? Given the time of day where you're at, like what? It's like almost 8, 9, 10 p.m., something like that. Should be get some rest and relaxation, my friend. My cat's yelling at me. 1 second. My door, what do you need? It's a good baby. Almost precious. Oh, those are precious beards. A little shy. When it comes to the stream, he does. The dog comes in much more frequent. A bit of a daddy's boy. Loves snugging me, and he's purring like crazy right now. Could hold him like completely upside down, and he'll just sit and admire me. Owl cat. Maine Coon definitely has like fur heavy, very beautiful kitty. Oh, kitty. Baby. I don't know if any cat owners, you can actually rub a cat's belly. I'm a bit far from the mic. I said, any cat owners out there? How many of you can rub your cat's belly like this? No, honestly, when I was growing up, most of my cats hated belly. Being sat upside down like this, always like being right side up. Artful Darkness, you can sometimes. Tropism, how you doing? Welcome back. I just take 2d4 slashing damage. Sure it's not piercing damage? Right, he's making biscuits in his face right now. Sharp. He is clawing my face. Oh my goodness. Oh man, use a cute. That has to work. Oh, in my hand. Oh my god. Ow! Going back out in the hall. Balerin, thank you for the follow. Much appreciated. I love both cats and dogs. I love them both equally. We have both. We have a cat and a dog. I honestly couldn't see it any other way. Like I know some people are cat people, some people are dog people. I want both. They both have their own personality, style. This one here, Dad's biggest fan, loves to snug me all night in the bed. Obviously, as you can see, my beard, but right? That GIF is one of my favorites. El Dorado, right? Wasn't it Dorado? Both. Both is good. Okay, time for you to go. Your whiskers. Did I recently get a haircut? No, my hair's grown out so much I look extra bald. 1 second, let me put the cat away. Goodness. So much cat. Oh my goodness. And I have fur all over me now. Okay. So, did I recently get a haircut? No. So, the more my hair grows, the balder I look. Shlomo, it's a phenomenon. The more hair I have, the balder I look. So eventually I'll get to a point where it annoys me and I'll just shave my entire head, all the side hair, you know, the clown hair and the beard. And then when I come back, everyone's like, oh, wow, you look so good. Because it's like you don't even notice I'm balding because it's just like a shaved head. It's a weird phenomenon that I look more bald with more hair. Anyone else relate? Hey, Tropism, are you still watching? We're on YouTube? I just wanted to say, I've been seeing your maps on the workshop lately. Very good work. Fantastic builds. Absolutely phenomenal. The beard brings out the angles of my face. I'm not sure what that means. Do I look more round with a beard or more angled? Crack me up, Jim. Streams start at 5 a.m. for you. Oh no. Oh no. That's the worst. I'm sorry. You know, I try to spread the streams out on 3 different days with like slightly different times and hope that helps a lot of our community members try to find one that they can attend. But yeah, 5 a.m. is rough. I get it. I'm hoping in the near future to add another stream that's a little bit later in the day. 1 or 2 more streams that are like, i.e. afternoon or evening streams for me instead of morning, early afternoon. So it would be, you know, different times for people all around the world. When I do the green screen. You're in New Zealand? Oh, awesome. Man, New Zealand's so beautiful. I've seen some pictures and video of it. Absolutely astounding country. Also, kind of a big fan of like how you guys speak English. Just I don't know why. I think it's awesome. I like your accents. Honestly, I like a lot of accents. It's fun to listen to other cultures speak English. And I am all about like helping other people learn too. I actually, years ago on my stream, I met someone who just moved to the US and he didn't have many friends, but he did have a love for a game that I loved called Battlefield. And he would watch on the stream and learn English from me and from the other community members. And he learned a whole ton of it in like a couple of years. So you're saying I should keep the beard but get rid of like all this? So it's just like beard and that's it? You know, Anani, I live in the U.S. and English is our primary language, and I have awful English. Like my grammar is awful, my spelling. Like, I mean, most people in the U.S. like, you know, they basically amazing education system here, and it's crazy because you can go across the United States and we all like were raised in the same country on the same like education system and TV shows and stuff and like movies and like news for the most part, but there's some people who speak completely different than me. It's interesting to say the least. Like localized dialects are interesting. Fran Carelli, thank you for the like, much appreciated. You call it Ben Gurion hair? I at this point I call it clown hair. When it gets a little bit longer than this, it's like bozo hair, right? I'm bald on top and getting like the wings on the side. That's when I shave every time. I'll pull out the clippers, go over it with my beard trimmer, lasts like a week. I've been trying to learn German for 3 or so years. Duolingo didn't like my Scottish accent to begin with. Once tried to switch my Xbox to German to help, but it didn't. Main thing, as a true Scottish person, I can talk about the weather. Honestly, though, like German is kind of it's a tricky language to learn because I say this as someone who took a few years of German in like middle school and high school. It's a very beautiful language, but you also need to understand like what is the term? It's something that confused me very much when I was in high school, but it basically is like every word, or like a lot of words in the German language have like multiple versions of the same word. There's the masculine, the feminine, and the neutral version of a lot of words. And so saying one in a different setting could mean something completely different. And that's where I had like, yeah, remembering the gender of nouns was the hardest part, I think, for me in German. Is like they were all different circumstances and that you would use them in. I spoke German for I learned German for 2-3 years, and that was the thing I struggled with the absolute most was the gender identity of different nouns, just to say it the right way. I think it's so like I don't know. Like it's obvious we use the gendered like versions of nouns in like in English and stuff, but I think it's more important to understand it in those languages for understanding how to say it correctly. Stormy, I'm wonderful. How are you? Welcome back. What's new? This little city corner is a great example of how, just like a nice little road allows for a city to thrive. Okay, they've got market stalls, like city, like a little fountain and other things to really allow the people to, get what they need nearby. It's a walkable city. Enjoying ice cream and cake? Are you at a birthday party? Highland Lass, I'd imagine, like you said, your accent with Duolingo might struggle a little bit because of that. And that's sad because like I'm not gonna lie, like like, you know, like the Highland accent, like the Scottish accent, is pretty cool. It's like when people talk like that, it's like it's very smooth. I feel like, you know, the words seem to just like flow into each other. Um, at least from my perspective. I love that we have such a diverse culture of like community members, people from all over the world, different backgrounds, and like, you know, I think tabletop gaming is, you know, something that brings a lot of people. Very cool. I should try listening to the Orcadian accent and dialect. I've been answering Lizzie's messages. Don't worry about it, Atlam. I see Lizzie's messages come through, and I'm very attentive to her questions. Mainly because she's mainly our primary and one of our primary viewers on Facebook. So I definitely want to make sure that her questions are getting answered. No ice cream from the freezer. My mom had her birthday yesterday. Also, who attends a birthday party? I don't know. It's 10 p.m. for you. How am I supposed to know what your time zone is right now? I mean, for me, it's only 1 p.m. It's just you said ice cream and cake, so I just assumed. Be more omnipotent. You know, I honestly, that's a great point, Stormy, but I have heard of people who, like, while they're in a social situation, will still pull up Twitch or like streams or social media on their phones. Maybe they're at a friend's party and they don't know everyone, so they're not comfortable or whatever. You know, I honestly, I've been streaming a lot of years and I have seen it all. I've seen it all. I swear to you, one time, and I know this was a troll, pretty much guaranteed a troll. Someone was in my chat on a stream claiming that they'd just been in a tornado and were pinned beneath debris and they couldn't call 911, but they could watch a stream and they were begging for help. Okay, like I've heard it all. I've seen and heard it all. But yes, you make very good points. Why would you be eating cake and ice cream if you're attending a birthday party and watching the stream? I don't know. People do it. Oh goodness, right, Highland? Yeah, you say something and then they just immediately assume you're like very, very lingual and understand the language, and you're just trying to be friendly and nice, and then it's like, oh, whoa, I only know like 20 words actually. I'm sorry. Did I give the impression that I actually knew the whole language? My bad. Massive props to you, though, Highland Lass, for trying to learn another language. I know it's never easy to take on a task like that. You know what I mean? Like, it could be daunting. What's your mother tongue, Stormy? Well, you type English very well. I've never spoken to you personally to hear you talk, but your typing very, very good. Hey, Cave Beast, how you doing? Does that help, Stormy? You just watch like a bunch of like English speaking content and you learn it really quickly. And then you got to deal with all our measurements too. I hear so many people that play D&D like in Europe absolutely loathe the fact that it has the like the measurement system that like I heard so many people get upset about it. I feel so bad. I wish I had more influence over that, but unfortunately I don't. Yeah, imperial versus metric is a fun conversation. It's funny because when I was growing up, like, imperial is like you learn in school that this was developed like in the past, right? In like, and it was used in other countries in the past, but then they moved away from it, and for some reason we're still using it. Hey, I've got no gripes with metric. I think it's a very cool measurement system, how everything is done in tens, but or hundreds or thousands or whatever. I can't really change it from my level. It's silly that we have to deal with it in the United States. Miles per hour is silly, feet and inches and all that stuff is silly. But it's, yeah. I use metric quite a bit because I'll do like 3D printing, you know, or 3D design, so I do everything in like millimeters and centimeters and stuff. But then I go out to my garage and like, you know, all my tools are a hodgepodge of different things for different connections and stuff. But then my like measuring tape, you know, it has inches, which is crazy measurement for anything. It's silly. Having to go online and convert like measurements of like inches to millimeters is silly, and I have to do it constantly. You think of 10 feet as 10 meters? That's 3 times the distance. 10 feet would be roughly 3 meters. Yeah, KP. Yeah, I know. Metric is really smart. It really is. I wish I could convince the greater part of my country to switch to it. There's been some initiatives in the past, senators and whatever tried to push for it, but it never went anywhere. I think the main thing is everyone's just stuck in their ways and doesn't want to change. You know what I mean? It is a big deal to change like all of that over. NASA's actually had issues in the past with launches where one member or one party on their team, like one company, was using metric and the rest were using imperial, so it had a problem. You know what, Stormy? I only measure things in bullets and eagle feathers, so I don't know how many colas go into a gallon. I'm just kidding. What's a square? I feel so weird without music on. Well, you can hear it, I'm sure. Is it playing for y'all? No, I get it. Y'all can easily just convert it to your system of measurement. It's just squares. The squares can be any measurement. That's often a hang up we run into in our community, and people will be like, oh, why is it a 3 meter square or whatever? Like, it's whatever you want it to be. My friends from across the pond, have you heard of a yard? A yard is like an American meter. It's like 3 feet. The yard is that thing behind my house. Your road measurements are still in miles? Interesting. Is your, like, speedometer in your car still miles per hour then? This is so intriguing to me. Okay, Stormy. Stormy, you have horses too? Highland Lass has horses as well. So many equestrians. Oh, gotcha. Wanted to make a yard joke. Gotcha. Well, you got me. You got me good. So, you know, my speedometer in my car does have kilometers. Most American cars have kilometers in them, but it's like smaller below. So the top area of the arch is miles per hour, but underneath in like smaller writing is kilometers per hour. In case you cross the 49th, right? Tropism, where are you from? Isn't 100 miles per hour like a lot faster than 100 kilometers per hour? Like, that's a lot faster if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in Canada, we have a weird mix of imperial and metric, our weight in pounds, our cars in kilometer. Interesting. So you're kind of mid-transition to metric, right, Gabriel? Gabriel, what part of Canada are you in, my friend? Okay, you said New Zealand earlier, right? That's right, tropism. I apologize. That's right. You said it earlier. But you lived in Canada for 30. See, when you said the 49th, I was really confused by that because that's like strictly almost a Canadian phrase. You're in Ontario? Nice. So I have family that lives in Alaska, right? And when I went there, they would say the lower 48, right? Hey, Marcelo, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate that. Oh man, I bet that would be a bit frustrating. with cooking especially. Oh my gosh. Gabriel, I think we started but ran out of steam. It makes sense. Like Canada is kind of an interesting swath of like micronations. I feel like each province, which are like, and in my mind it feels like each province is a very very like derivative of the colony that like originally like was there, who founded it, right? Right, America, France, England. Isn't there also Dutch too, Gabriel? This is so interesting to hear from so many different people. Man, cooking would be so hard. Products have both Celsius and Fahrenheit on the directions, then it's written in English and French. Oh my. Aren't there some areas in Canada where you have to like provide French like instructions and like information on every product? It's like the law there. Six Slice Toaster, I've been really enjoying this program. It's so awesome. Thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate you, my friend. How long you been using Dungeon Alchemist? All areas? That's good to know. I thought it was just certain regions. Tropism, Mosey. Learning so much today. Tell me something about your culture or your like region, your country that you think most other people don't know about. Let's do that today. Everyone here, tell us something about your country you think most people don't know. In Quebec? I heard there's great fishing in Quebec. Fahrenheit makes 0 sense. Correct. You are on point there. Just because it doesn't make sense doesn't mean it's not being used. So, wow, that's really cool, Tropism. Okay, Tropism says New Zealand has no snakes and only one predator, a hawk. So it has lots of flightless birds and large insects. Wouldn't you consider a human population a predator? Technically, too. Not to get too technical, but that's an interesting factoid. In Scotland, mainly the Highlands, road signs are in Gaelic and English because Orkney and Shetland are not. We don't have to have bilingual signs. Our islands are of Scandinavian heritage. That went so many directions. That's so intriguing. I love it. Cave Beast, most people won't expect it, but we have beautiful beaches and 2 coastlines. Where is this at, Cave Beast? Oh, stoats? Interesting, cute little creatures, but yes, definitely can demolish a local population. The UK only has one venomous snake, the adder. Cool. My country has the most biodiversity in the world. Where is that at, Marcelo? Let's hear about it. That's a bold claim. I want to know where. Well, if you look at the era it was used, what was being recorded, height on gauge. Oh, you're in Brazil, Marcelo? Nice, nice. There's a lot of information about that I've heard as well. Like Scandinavian men had like better overall, what's the word that I'm looking for? But they just were, they took care of their hair, their teeth. They had better overall hygiene. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. I heard that this also led to them being favored by women in other countries. But I don't know how true that is. There's a lot of like historical stuff that you just take with a grain of salt. But, I wouldn't doubt it. I think a lot of rumors start with a grain of truth. You know what I mean? He lives in the Amazonian rainforest. Brazil, I do believe, has a very unique biodiversity. South America, in particular, south of the, that barrier where it's like all forest. It's very, very diverse. Kyle Schultz, this is called Dungeon Alchemist. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Dungeon Alchemist is a map making tool for your games like D&D or Pathfinder. It's also just kind of fun to make maps in and relax, and just as a fun art form. But we offer a free demo. You can try it out on Steam. It's called Dungeon Alchemist. You can find a link in our bio. I mean, stoats could have come in the way of like rats if there was a certain thing brought on board. You know what I mean? Yeah, hay or anything. Have I heard about the Versailles Palace? I feel like I have heard of it, but I'd like to know more. Your D&D group stopped talking to each other? No, that's the worst. Isn't the worst? Like, that's the biggest bad of all when the group falls apart, right, Kyle? Lolandra says the white sands in New Mexico, USA is not actually sand. It is gypsum. Interesting. Interesting. I did not know that. I would have assumed that the white sands, it probably was like covered in water at some point, and it was made up of all the, sea life that was there. But being gypsum, that's a unique biome. Interesting. 2,300 rooms and only 2 bathrooms. Man, the line had to have been insane. My country paid a serious amount of pounds to the Rothschilds to be independent. Okay, I'm intrigued. Which country is this? Please tell me more. Dungeon Alchemist lives up to its name. Crazy magical. I love how easy it is to use as someone that makes a map in anger, not for love. Gabriel, I'm glad you found a tool that helps you, channel that anger into making beautiful maps. The goal of the devs was to make a map making tool that was easy to use, and quick, right? You love Dungeon Alchemist and Foundry VTT. I wish they had a baby someday. Like, what kind of things would you like to see from that marriage, Marcelo? Is there certain, aspects of Dungeon Alchemist and Foundry you'd like to see mixed together? I told my wife the other day that I feel like I'm Jonathan Frakes. In his like what is it? He has like a show he's had for years where it's like phenomena and stuff like that. Tons and tons of parrotfish poop. What? I wish we could import DA maps into Tabletop Simulator. You know, Pegasus Hobbies, that's an interesting statement. We actually have people in our community who use Dungeon Alchemist with Tabletop Simulator. Granted, it's top down as Dungeon Alchemist is intended, not a full 3D. But I understand what you're going for. It's beyond belief. That's right, Mosey Poe. So Dungeon Alchemist 3D into Foundry. What if Dungeon Alchemist went 3D into its own virtual tabletop? Would you be interested in something like that? But so I told my wife I feel like I'm this clip sometimes on stream because I just ask a lot of questions. I feel like I'm Jonathan Frakes on his show, just asking hundreds of questions randomly throughout the stream. So I will tell you this. Dungeon Alchemist, the devs in our dev team has a plan, right? And the plan is obviously focus on Dungeon Alchemist till we leave early access, right? Had a cat fur on my nose from that cute little kitty snuggling me earlier. But they want to take Dungeon Alchemist beyond that point. Several things that they've said that will take us beyond our early access as we release into full access. Optional expansions, i.e., different aesthetics or biomes, things like sci-fi, cyberpunk, modern, etc. Imagine a pack, an expansion that comes with thousands of assets, room types, biomes, doors, windows, walls, floors, roofs, all in that aesthetic. Those will be optional and would be something we do above and beyond our promises from Kickstarter. Additionally, the devs have stated they want to do some sort of VTT that is paired with Dungeon Alchemist, meaning it is our own virtual tabletop that understands Dungeon Alchemist maps from top to bottom and better represents them. I think the reason, like a lot of people want these 3D represented maps, kind of like a video game in D&D, right? But the problem is we're working with the existing architecture infrastructure, which is top-down tabletop play. Most games, TTRPGs, tabletop games are designed to be in a top-down scenario, like a setting, right? And our map maker was designed around that because that's where most virtual tabletops reside with their technology. Even Foundry doesn't offer a true 3D unless you have a mod, which is locked behind a paywall. So it's not a stock feature with Foundry. It's a third-party feature. That being said, I do think with time, we will release our own matching virtual tabletop software that'll likely get the most beneficial use out of Dungeon Alchemist. I think it'll be a while, at least 2 to 3 years minimum. That's very optimistic because we're still in early access, right? We have 4.5 major updates before we leave early access. And those early access promises were to our Kickstarter supporters. We have no intention of deviating from our Kickstarter plans until all of our promises are delivered. So essentially, we want to stay true to our original plans and deliver on all those promises and then offer above and beyond. Gabriel, you know what I'm talking about, right? There's a 3D app for Foundry, but it's locked behind a paywall. It's a third-party mod. with GURPS support. We just need a Fog of War and a dice roller. Pegasus Hobbies, yeah, that could work. That's kind of a basic VTT, but yeah. Okay, let's open up another map that showcases infrastructure. Amanda, thank you for that follow. Much appreciated. Over on TikTok. I was talking to my wife yesterday, and or the day before, I was telling her I miss quirky sci-fi. Like, sci-fi all used to be so weird and quirky when I was growing up. And now it's kind of boxed into like a certain, I don't know, aesthetic or feel. Like when I was growing up, we had shows like The Fifth Element. Is it Josiah? Hi, I bought and love DA, but I was wondering why it's so laggy on larger BM. What do you mean by that? You mean larger maps in general? There were so many weird sci-fi shows and movies when I was growing up. Battle maps, gotcha. So I will tell you this, Josiah, the map size you can make is directly proportionate to your computer specs. So the more powerful of a machine, computer you have, the larger, more detailed, more intricate map with more effects and lighting you can make. Okay? Now, when we just introduced our multi-level update in July, you also need to take into account, if you start adding multi-level to a map, say this map has 9 levels and it's a relatively small map, but when you do 9 times, you know, whatever the size of this map is, it adds up really quick. It's like 9 maps right on top of each other, right? Does that make sense? So it's 65 by 50 times 9. So when you start adding multi-level, you need to take that into account too. So if you're on, like, say, a laptop or a desktop that's a few years old or kind of a generic machine, it may struggle with larger maps. So we recommend only making maps, you know, around a certain size. We even put notifications in DA to warn you if you're making a map over 50 by 50, which, to be honest, is a really large battle map. Battle maps typically are around 40 by 40 or less for an encounter. If it's larger than that, you can definitely make them if your computer specs can handle it. So with Dungeon Alchemist, it also does something that you're not used to. In most video games, you kind of have like pre-rendered environments, right? Where you like load into an area, it's all preloaded, and then you interact with that environment. Dungeon Alchemist doesn't work like that. You're building the environment in real time. So it renders the entire environment in real time as you navigate through it. So the more you have visible on screen, the more processing power it takes. If you're zoomed in on your map, right? The further you're zoomed in, the less lag or frame drops you'll notice. Josiah, there's definitely going to be performance improvements in the future. We're still in early access, so there's a lot of ways to go until we get Dungeon Alchemist to a full release and we feel, you know, satisfied with where it's at. I think for now, it's best to just kind of stay within the, you know, kind of that little Goldilocks zone we've given you. And you can kind of tell what your computer can handle. You know your computer and its specs and what kind of games you can handle. If you're handling like the latest and greatest games that are like, you know, ultra FPS, high resolution, HDR, all these latest and greatest things, you probably can run Dungeon Alchemist up to a 100 by 100 map with no issue. But if your computer is a few years old or kind of a generic or an average machine not intended for gaming or streaming or 3D, rendering, you may run into issues over a large size of map. DA actually, yes, is actually single core at the moment. It only uses a single core of all your processors, from my understanding. So it can be definitely more optimized in the future. Let's see. Does somebody want to know my settings? Sure. Or my specs? My specs are kind of high, though. I have a very powerful computer, so I can run DA really well on the stream. Stand by. So I just pulled up DXDiag, which is a DirectX diagnostics tool. It tells you like a lot about your computer specs. So I've got a Ryzen 9 5900, 132 megabytes or gigabytes of RAM. And then I have a GeForce RTX 4070 Ti. I believe so, Stormy. With time, optimization is going to be something on the table. I think they just wanted to hammer out most of the basic foundational infrastructure before they started optimizing. Kaihira, how have you been? Welcome back. Josiah, by the way, do yourself a favor when you're building your maps. Focus on the area you're building. If you're zoomed in on an area, your performance in Dungeon Alchemist will be a lot better than if you're way zoomed out. Think of it like a flashlight, right? When whatever is visible with the light is what's rendering. So if it's a tighter beam, it only shows a little area. That's all that's rendering actively while you're working on it. I mean, Dungeon Alchemist kind of uses everything. It uses your RAM, it uses your GPU and your CPU. It's kind of a trifecta use, right? I feel like having more RAM helps if you want to have like a lot of assets from the workshop that you're subscribed to, because and tokens from like Hero Forge. The more RAM you have is directly proportionate to like how many assets you can load effectively without it bogging down DA. Your GPU runs like your effects, like your lighting and all of the movements of like trees and water. And then your CPU generally loads like the overall size and infrastructure of the map. I mean, it was probably built on a computer similar to mine. Like I would say a streamer or gamer machine that's fairly modern, right? So Josiah, another thing you can do to increase your performance, if you go to view, you can disable natural animations. That freezes like the trees and the water. That'll squeeze out a few more frames. You can also go to settings and switch it from say high to medium or low. Notice how there's shadows and stuff on medium. When you go to low, there's not. So it actually helps a lot with performance. What your graphics quality is does not affect what your export quality is. It'll always export in high quality, like a high quality image, but you can build in low quality. Well, Pegasus Hobbies, you're conflating two different things. Being able to build a map in Dungeon Alchemist is different than loading it into, say, Foundry. Because when it's in Foundry, it's a series of images, right? A multi-level map like this is just 9 images stacked, right? So that would be 9 different scenes if you do it the optimized way, or if you use like a module, like levels, it would be all 9 images in a single scene, right? So realistically, images are much easier to load than say a 3D fully rendered environment in real time. And that's another reason why it's kind of tricky to offer this in a virtual tabletop environment. 3D rendered virtual tabletops, I think we're still a little ways off before it's like mainstream and works on the average computer. But I don't think the average player would have a trouble loading a map like this because, like I said, it's basically like 50 by 60. They would have 9 different maps to load into, 65 by 50, right? So that's not too big for an average map in like Foundry, especially if it's exported at 72 DPI. So essentially, here, let me show you what I mean. When you export a multi-level map, it breaks it up into a ton of different images. Only the ground floor. Let's go to all layers. And by this will take a moment. So notice here, this is every layer of the map, i.e. underground layers, base layers, as you go into second and third and fourth floors, showing the roofing on different levels, right? Essentially, these would all act as separate scenes in your virtual tabletop of choice. When your players access a staircase going to an upper area or a lower area, you can load into that new map. There's even tools that automatically do that. Ooh. Hey, no worries. If you have other questions, let us know. That's what the streams are for. Essentially, I'm here to answer your questions, provide guidance, and take your feedback and suggestions to the dev team. You cannot, Gabriel. Legacy maps are essentially any map made in the older version of Dungeon Alchemist prior to the update that launched in July, Fun with Objects, is considered a legacy map. So if you started building the map in Dungeon Alchemist prior, it's considered that. You cannot add multi-level to them, you cannot convert them. There were so many changes done and like fundamental changes to the base infrastructure of Dungeon Alchemist's like code to support multi-level and roofing that older maps just simply could not be converted. I actually have a legacy map that I started before the update and I've yet to finish it. I'm going to load it really quick. It's a massive cemetery that I've been building every Monday. Every Monday, we have a stream called Mapmaker Monday. That's roughly 2 hours of streaming, 2.5 hours typically, 2.5. And I build the map, anywhere from about a half hour to an hour and a half, depending on how busy the stream is, what's going on. Because I run the stream in AMA format, which means ask me anything. So you can drop into pretty much any of our streams and ask questions. So whether you're a new member of our community or you've been here for years, you know tons about Dungeon Alchemist, or you're just getting your feet wet, you can tune in, ask questions, share suggestions and feedback, and I will do my best to provide you with guidance and answers to your questions in real time, and also take your suggestions as notes back to the devs. Lizzie, are you trying to break a big map up into smaller maps so it's like easier to say print it or something? Can you elaborate further on what you're trying to do? So every Monday we've been building this map here, which is called the Ancient Cemetery, which is a legacy map that I started before the update. So multi-level in this map was done by hand. I actually built this little bell tower by hand with freestanding walls. Anything above this level right here was done with objects. Mosey, do it. Just do it. Do it. Just do it. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do it. All the do it memes from my era were awful. Don't put off to tomorrow what you could do to today. Do it. Yeah, Palpatine was another one. Do it. So there was at least 3 distinct do it memes, right? Palpatine is one of them. Do it. And then you have Shia LaBeouf's, who kind of went through like a bit of a ringer, kind of a mental. Anyway, he was like going through an artistic phase, and like he put this video out where he was like talking in the video, trying to be motivational for like 5 minutes straight, telling people, don't put off to tomorrow what you can do to today. And he's like, just do it. Anyway, Palpatine was the OG. Then you had Shia LaBeouf's, and then you had there was a movie made with Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller, and they were, what was it? Starsky and Hutch. It was a Starsky and Hutch reboot, like 30 years after the TV show. And in that movie, Ben Stiller dresses up undercover. Yeah, and he's like, do it. Just do it. Josiah, is there a way to export to have only part of the JSON data be considered? I'll explain myself. I found an awesome map on the workshop with a harbor, homemade with objects, made it on Explorer because all the wall data from the JSON. So primarily, wall data is only added in 2 places in Dungeon Alchemist, right? Well, 3 places, I should say. Anywhere there's like a wall, right? Or like a window, depending on your virtual tabletop. Windows and doors may be represented as variations of walls, but typically they're their own thing. So like fences, walls, etc., right? Josiah, are you trying to expand the map and add more to it, or are you trying to really only export a section of the map? Essentially, all JSON data is considered normally, but like Atlam was saying, you could grab these little chevrons here and shrink the map down just to that portion of the map. So it's much smaller, and it essentially deletes all the JSON data outside of that space. Does that make sense? When trying to change a map of that size, you got to be careful, because if it's a huge map and you shrink it by like half, it could crash DA or take like an hour to do. I don't know why. Tropism, yo, you knew exactly what I was talking about though, right? To do it. And then also you have the Nike just do it, right? Yeah, Stormy, that's a good point. I mean, really, it's the best of both worlds. You can make maps in moments, just generate them and use the generic stuff that we generate to just save time, right? Or you could spend hours deliberately decorating it by hand. So I do know that pillars and certain like freestanding walls will add a wall to them because people wanted to use pillars as a cover mechanic, right? So they could stand behind it and have half cover or whatever, full cover. I heard he's not involved with next season though. Technically it's not on TV, it's on streaming. But it's a good show. So, Josiah, I'm trying to understand this. So you have a map you found on the workshop and you're not happy with how it exports based on the wall data. You may have to just delete some walls or go into the map and delete the objects that you found problematic. That's the only way around it. You know what I mean? Tropism, I heard that Stiller wasn't going to be the showrunner or involved for the next season. I don't know how true that is. I had heard he stepped away for the next season or was removed. I don't know, which is crazy considering how well the show is doing. Basically, Josiah, the only way you're going to be able to do that, there's no way to remove the JSON data within Dungeon Alchemist short of deleting the object that creates it when you export it. So like if this object created JSON data, you'd have to delete it and export it again in order to remove that data. The only way to remove it after the fact is inside of Foundry, which has the ability to delete walls, delete sections at will. So Foundry does give you the tools to do it, but unfortunately, the way we give you tools is by giving you the ability to build. Stiller will not direct any season 3 episodes. That's what I'm reading right here. All right, everyone. It is time to wrap it up. Quick little reminder. Our next stream is on Monday, which is Map Maker Monday. So I'm focusing on building out this massive map, which is an extensive cemetery. Foundry has like wall tools once you import, right? And you can, just take it and delete wall sections. So if the pillars, you can delete those sections, right? Or if you just don't want the pillars to generate the JSON so you don't have to remove it, remove the pillars from the build. Hey, Gabriel, you're welcome anytime. Glad to have you today. Hope to have you back in the future. Remember, everyone, if you enjoyed the stream today, make sure you hit that follow and subscribe button, depending on your platform. The like and share as well. That way your friends and family and cohorts can know about Dungeon Alchemist. As we are a small indie team, word of mouth is our primary form of advertisement. So it means a lot to us when you tell, your table, your friends, family about Dungeon Alchemist. One last thing, I would like to invite you all to our Discord. If you're not a member of our Discord, I highly recommend joining. It's kind of the main coagulation of our community. It's the best place to get support. You can ask questions there 24 hours a day in our question or support forum. And myself or moderators or staff members or other community members will chime in and provide you with assistance. Additionally, it's a great place to meet other like-minded DMs, GMs. We have areas where your GM chat is encouraged. You can share ideas with each other, bounce, homebrew stats, encounters, stat blocks, maps, etc. People use this as a resource to help each other out and learn how to DM and more effectively. It's a great tool. Our Discord, I think, is our greatest resource as a community tool. And so I highly recommend anyone who uses Discord check it out. Aside from this, though, we are on many different social media platforms. You can find us on Blue Sky. You can find us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. The list goes on. So if you're interested in learning where you might be able to learn more about Dungeon Alchemist, our upcoming events, upcoming, information about our next update, Fun with Objects 2, definitely check out our Discord or social media so you can learn the latest and greatest as it becomes available. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. I appreciate you all so very, very much. Big shout out to our moderators who were helping direct the flow of traffic today and making sure chat was in order and making sure everyone got the links and everything they needed. Big thank you to all the active participants in chat today, whether you were actively, typing and participating in the chat or lurking and providing us with an extra member, an extra viewer. All of that means the world to me as our community manager. These community-driven events are a big part of my job, so I appreciate it when you all tune in and get the benefit of it. So thank you very much. Like I said, we'll be back on Monday with Map Maker Monday. That's at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 p.m. UTC. The stream runs for about 2.5 hours. I'm going to be building in this cemetery, expanding details, adding, items to graves, and adding more graves. There's a lot of graves to go. So I hope you tune in and learn some map building and ask any questions you might have so you can learn more about Dungeon Alchemist. But until then, I hope you have an amazing weekend. Again, my name is Mac, the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. I'll see you next time I give a damn. I'm going to run a quick Dungeon Alchemist themed ad and we're going to wrap up the stream, okay? Thank you everyone for participating. Oops, I pushed the wrong button, turned off my camera. That was bad. Get that ad going.
You stand before the long, dark road to the fabled realm of Goyak Ta, and before
What do we see?
I don't know, a goblin.
I kill him.
But before she does, I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to know the goblin's name.
Hi, my name is Woblin.
Where do you live there, Woblin?
I don't think that's relevant.
Well, but I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to seek the goblin's abode.
Clever. Find family. Kill entire bloodline. I like it.
Seriously, we're doing this? Okay, well, won't be needing that anymore, will I?
Ever get caught by your players with your pants down? Dungeon Alchemist lets you create wonderful maps for any encounter in seconds.
Oh, Woblin, that's a very impressive cheese collection you've got there.
Yeah, it is quite impressive, yes. But you know what's more impressive? This map I have to the fabled realm of
Goyak Ta, please take it and leave. Close the door behind you.
Mr. Woblin, I cannot help but notice that you have a secret tunnel underneath your cabinet. Care to explain?
Download Dungeon Alchemist, the AI-powered map maker, on Steam today.
Use.
Asmo, should I just do it on stream? Just shave my head on stream for everyone to enjoy? We're still very much live. I'd only do that if we hit like a goal. You know what I mean? All right, everyone. Thank you for hanging out. We'll see you next time. Mac out. Bye. I'll consider it, Asmo. We'll talk to you later. Hopefully I'm not shaved by then.